Hello everyone, my name is Molly Montgomery and I am the Director of Library Services at the Idaho College of Osteopathic Medicine. And my 30-minute webinar today is titled Search Like a Librarian. And it is a part of a series to help you advance your research skills and support your scholarly activities. This is a series of webinars that osteopathic librarians around the country have been providing for about the past 2 years. For this particular webinar, my hope is that you will, after attending this, you will be able to develop a librarian mindset and to describe and apply some librarian level techniques to future searches. But before we get into it, we do have a poll, if you want to put that up, Katie, to select your current role, like what best describes you. And we'll leave this up for a little bit. We'll even fill it up. Okay, Katie, is the poll closed? Oh, there we go. Okay, faculty, lots of librarians, few students, and an other. So, well, welcome everyone, no matter where you're at or what role you fulfill at your institution. I think you'll be able to get something out of this. Okay, so when I came up with the idea to do this webinar about 6 months ago, I was like, sure, searching like a librarian. This should be an easy one to do. I've been a librarian for 20 years. I know how to search. But as I thought more about it, I kind of began to laugh because all librarians search a little differently. None of us search the same. And so to teach you to search like a librarian would be maybe a disservice, because honestly, I'd be teaching you to search how I search. So the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like it would be a better idea to teach you more about the mindset that librarians have going into a search versus a specific set of skills. And this does take a little more time and it will take practice, but I think in the long run, developing this librarian mindset is actually going to be more useful. So the first of these kind of criteria that I think it's important to adhere to if you want to be a really great searcher is being curious. And that's maybe the most important one, where I say to please embrace your inner 3-year-old, that part of you that asks why incessantly, that is curious, that just wants to know how things work. This is really important for librarians, and almost every librarian I know has this about them. We are obsessively curious about things. We want to know everything. It really helps because when you get frustrated in a search, instead of it being overwhelming or something that's going to lead you to quit your search, that becomes more of an interesting obstacle. It's something to get over. It's something to get beyond and try to solve that problem. And I give you full permission to fall down any searching rabbit hole that you encounter. This happens all the time with librarians, and a lot of students will come up to me and apologize and say, oh, I wanted to do this search, but I kept on going all these different directions. I'm like, well, that's actually tends to be where the magic is. That's where you really find interesting stuff that you might not have found otherwise. So embracing that curiosity is really important. It's also really important to be thoughtful. This is something I see in students all the time, and sometimes in myself, where I rush into a search. I need to find something. I don't think about it. I just rush into a database, throw some search terms into it, and hope for the best. And not surprising, I don't always get the best results with this. Sometimes you'll get great results, but usually not. And it tends to waste a lot of time and be frustrating. So one of the ways that I help myself be thoughtful about a search is I do what's called a pre-search, where I spend maybe an hour, maybe less time, just kind of noodling around the literature and trying to learn about the topic that I'm researching more about. That's where I'm learning about what are the controversies, where are the gaps in knowledge, who's doing the research, where are they doing it, what kinds of questions are they asking. This is where you're learning more about the basics of a search and a topic. You can use anything to do this. That can be Google, Wikipedia, up to date. You can get into literature if that's helpful, but this is not where you're doing your main search. This is not where you're actually digging into and getting into the weeds. This is really high level. And part of what you do what you're doing when you're spending time here is you're thinking about what is it you really want to know, because a lot of times we do enter into a search and we don't actually know that, whether we realize it or not. And one of the ways that you can learn and actually identify what it is you really want to know with a search is being systematic. And these are some of the strategies that I use to do that. And a lot of librarians will teach you this as well, is that it's really important to identify the components of your search. And to do that, we've got a couple of mnemonic devices, which I'm going to get into in a minute. It's really helpful to write out your research question before you do your search, because that's going to help you keep it much more focused instead of maybe going off on tangents that aren't helpful and maybe waste time. It's good to brainstorm your search terms so you have some options for searching, and to search in multiple sources. All different search tools and databases have different algorithms. They have different tools. So even similar databases maybe bring up different results. And so that's why I always search in at least 2 databases, if not more. So I'm going to get into some of the maybe the elements of that be systematic piece. So PICO, especially medical librarians, you guys know this pretty well, and a lot of faculty as well might know it, but I think it was worth making sure we're all on the same page. And what I have with, what I use this for with novice searchers or students is they will come to me or come to a librarian with kind of a question that's broad, like, I really want to know more about postpartum depression, or I really want to know about stress in medical residence. And that's such a broad question. It's much better to get a sense of, okay, what is it you really want to know? And this kind of a mnemonic device can help, where I ask them, okay, well, what population or problem are you specifically interested in? Is there an intervention you want to learn more about to solve this problem? Is there something you're comparing it to, or is there a control group? What kind of outcome is it that you're looking to learn about? And is time important? I put that in italics because it's not always an important part of a question, but sometimes it is. So when I was a medical librarian at a hospital, I had a group of nurses who were interested in seeing if kangaroo care could help increase weight gain in infants who were born preterm. And so this is what a PICO would look like for that. So we've got preterm infants, we have kangaroo care versus no kangaroo care. The outcome they're looking at is weight gain, and they wanted it specifically within 2 weeks. So this can really help make a very broad and ill-formed question much more specific and much more narrow, which the more specific a question is, the better you tend to have when you're searching on it. I also usually ask students or sort of novice searchers to think about their research question before they get started in their search, because again, this helps you save time because you're only finding and pulling up information that you actually are interested in. And this is one of my favorite templates. I can't remember. I have the link in my notes field here, so you'll get that eventually. But I think if you just search on template for asking PICO questions, it will come up. And it's such a great template because it takes those components that we just covered and it allows you to input them in and create this beautiful research question. And I ask students to do this to make sure there's consistency with their topic, with their PICO, and with their research question, because it amuses me how often the question or the research changes from one of those steps to another. So we're kind of looking for consistency here. Then the next thing is to identify the key concepts of your search, which you kind of do when you're doing that PICO breakdown and coming up with alternate search terms or brainstorming different terms. And so in this particular example, my key concepts are in red, and then I just brainstormed and wrote these down, other terms that I might be able to use to search. And these terms just came out of my head. They also came during my pre-search. So that hour or so I spent in UpToDate, in the primary literature, on Google, it also helped me find and learn terms that are used in this particular topic or this particular discipline. The next mindset to sort of take on is to be a smart searcher. And this kind of cracks me up because there are people who are born manual readers, and there are people who are not. I am definitely in the latter category. I never read a manual and then I never have any idea what's going on. So don't be me, and actually get into the various help files for each database or each search tool. Every database, every search tool has this, whether it's an FAQ or a user guide, everything has this, and you're going to be a much better and smarter searcher that way. If you're like me and hate reading manuals, go to YouTube. Everyone has got YouTube videos on almost every database that you want to search, whether that's librarian created or database created YouTube videos. There's also a ton of tutorials on the major databases for sure, and pretty much everything, either again created by the database themselves or search tool or librarians. And if all else fails, ask an expert, because sometimes my question is very specific and I can't find it in the manual or YouTube videos, but I know a librarian who spends almost all their time in a particular database. So I send a question to that librarian. So these are just some screenshots of what this looks like for PubMed. So on PubMed's main page, you'll see what's on the lower left-hand side, which is just learning more about it. Most of us, again, those of us who are not manual users tend to skip this, but there's so much good information in there. PubMed also has a great training course on using it for evidence-based practice. And on the right-hand side, there is a YouTube video series from the Johns Hopkins Library about using PubMed. So it's not an issue of not enough resources, it's usually of finding the right ones. And that's kind of about, are you better? Do you learn better watching things? Do you learn better reading things, or kind of using that, or a combination of the two? Another mindset is to be a detective. This is part of why I love being a librarian and love getting really difficult searches, is because it's a mystery to solve. It's like a puzzle also. We love puzzles as librarians. And here's some of the things that I do to do that detective work, is digging through reference lists. Most of us already know to do this, but sometimes with novice searchers, they read the article, but they forget to get through the reference list. And sometimes it's the best stuff is in that reference list. I also use the similar articles feature in PubMed. I find a great article that matches exactly what I'm looking for, and then I just click that similar articles, and that tends to bring up some good stuff too. Use that cited by feature in Google Scholar, also very good. That has helped me on numerous occasions when I was totally stuck. And for you Bayesian fans out there, update your priors. So all of us go into a search with certain levels of biases and certain expectations of what we're going to find. And that can get us into trouble, because you tend to look for only what find only what you're looking for. So I've had people who've asked me, yeah, this is what I want you to find. Don't bring me anything that discredits that or it goes up against that. I'm like, that's not how research works. So make sure you're incorporating all of the body of literature, not just sort of what's in your certain level of bias. So update those priors. Be fancy. This is a good technique, and this is definitely something librarians are able to do. When I started teaching library classes and workshops 20 years ago, a long, long time ago, I taught this every single time. This was essential because the search tools and databases were not very smart. If you wanted to do an advanced search, you had to know these things. But now search tools and databases are smart. Algorithms are getting so much better. The search tools are getting so much better. So you can do a pretty good search without knowing these. I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of librarians here to know that I don't always teach Boolean or subject headings. Please don't leave. Don't throw things at me. So we'll talk a little bit about that because I do think it's important. So using Boolean operators, very important, especially if you're stuck in a search or a search is not working how you think it should. Using quotes is really important to force a phrase search, which some databases, this works okay and some it doesn't. And I use truncation every once in a while if I want the database to look for all variations of a word. But almost all of these get done automatically in a lot of databases, so it's not something that needs to get used all the time. And I also use subject headings. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Boolean and subject headings. So again, sorry for you librarians, I know you are very familiar with this, but I think it's a good review, is what Boolean operators are and how to use them. So when you use and in a search, you're narrowing that search You use this with different concepts like librarians and dinosaurs. Those are different concepts. And you're telling the database or search tool you want anything that includes information on both librarians and dinosaurs. Both of those things have to appear. Or we'll widen a search. You use those with synonyms or similar concepts. So in the case of our kangaroo care, that might be preterm or very low birth weight or low birth weight, something that includes that concept. And you're telling the database you want any of those items to come up. It doesn't matter which one. I include not here, but I use this with this. I have a cautionary note that it can make a search, but it can also very easily break a search because it can over limit things. So I use this with great caution. So an example we use a lot in library land is nursing, not breastfeeding. So those are terms that are similar, but you want to make sure you're getting that particular concept out of there. So this is just sort of a basic example of what a fancy or advanced search would look like, where you've got your ors or your similar concepts combined in parentheses. You have your ands, which are combining your dissimilar concepts, your different concepts, and a not to try to get something out. I don't think you really need to use not marsupials in the search, but it's kind of a good example. So subject headings, these are kind of the dictionaries of databases where they are terms that are assigned to books, to articles by indexers, either human or machine indexers. And these are really great to expand a search that gets stuck because they're searching more on the concept versus a specific term. So if you are searching, like I use a car example. So if you're searching on the term Corvette, the concept is actually automobile or sports car. And so that subject heading would include that, which maybe you wouldn't find that if you're searching on a specific term. A lot of librarians will talk about this as searching kind of like hashtags. So with Instagram, if you search on like a hashtag cat fail, you're going to find all of the cat fail videos and pictures that other people have indexed using that subject heading. This is an example of subject headings in PubMed. This is what it looks like. They call them MESH or medical subject headings. And at the bottom of almost every article, you will find this listed. And what I really like about PubMed ones in particular is you can search on these. So you can click on any of these and add it to a search or create a new search. The asterisks indicate that they are the main subject, and the slash means it's a subheading. And something that I used to do when I taught undergrads and high school students how to use subject headings, especially in MESH, is I would bring this up and I would ask them to tell me what they thought the article was about. So I'm sure maybe some of you have got a good idea of what this article potentially might be about, but here it is. So yeah, anything that's forensic in nature tends to make really good subject headings. And I'll go back to this just for a second, is that, again, this is something that is kind of a nice to know versus a need to know, at least in my opinion. It can definitely help you with the search, but doesn't always have to be used. It's really important to be organized from the very get-go. Don't get to the end of your search and go, oh my gosh, I've got articles all over the place. I've got some bookmarked, I've got some printed out. Try to choose a system that's going to work for you from the very beginning, whether that's using a reference manager, using the database's save features, or some combination of the two. Just use something. And something that, especially if this is a complex search, I like to write down my search terms so I can go back later on and try to rerun that search. It can be very frustrating if you need to rerun a search and you have no idea what you searched on. Ask me how I know that one. This is a really important skill as well, is being tenacious. I think it kind of goes with being curious. It's something that really can't be taught, but it is something that I think you can learn to do, where you can stick with your search. Don't give up just because you hit that initial roadblock. You can try different terms. You can try different variations of different terms, try different databases, use advanced tools. Don't give up too soon, because sometimes I get stuck with a search for hours and I just have that one breakthrough and the whole search just comes together, and that's so satisfying. But at the same time, know that at some point it's okay to ask for help if you get totally stuck, because you're never going to know everything. And as much as it pains me to admit that, I know I'm never going to know everything. So some of the people I start with when I get stuck in a search, or even sometimes initially when I know it's going to be a tricky search, sometimes I start with those subject matter experts, whether that's faculty or clinicians, students, whoever seems to know the most about that topic. This is where I will ask questions like, where should I search? What kind of terms should I search? What are the main journals? Things like that. Stuff that I would find eventually, but this will save me time. Also, search experts, that's librarians for sure. I don't know everything about every database out there. And in my current role, I don't do that much searching anymore. So I tend to get rusty and databases change all the time. So I'm totally okay asking for help, because I find that outside perspective is very helpful. In a really tricky search, sometimes you just get stuck in your own head and you're just sort of spinning your wheels and you're doing the same thing over and over again. And sometimes just that one conversation with someone is enough to open the search up and find good stuff. Okay, so summing up, really searching like a librarian is more about mindset than actual specific skills. The skills will come. You can watch the YouTube videos, you can get better at database searching, but acquiring that mindset is what I think takes the most time and I think is going to be the most helpful in the long run. Yes, it's going to take time and it will take practice, but it's not impossible. And I think one of the good things to find is it actually makes searching so much more fun if you kind of get into that particular mindset. Okay, so feedback and what's next. Those of you who registered will receive a survey. We really appreciate you filling that out because that helps us know what we're doing well and what we can improve on. Our last Scholarly Snippets webinar of the summer is going to be on June 22nd, and it's about writing an article manuscript, and you can register there. And we will be having a new series of Scholarly Snippets webinars that start in the end of August. So stay tuned for that. Let's see here, how much time we have? Oh, we have a good amount of time. Okay, any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And let me know if you have any questions or comments. See, I see Katie put some stuff in the chat about survey links in the next workshops and even the YouTube channel. So thank you for that, Katie. Okay, no questions, then feel free. Even librarians reach out to your librarians, like everyone else. Also reach out to your librarians because we definitely are here to help. We have different levels of skill sets and knowledge. So I think that's one of the great things about librarians is that we're by and large, we're a very helpful group. Okay, well,